Hey, what's up guys? Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and welcome to another reading vlog. So in this video, I am going to attempt to try a few different new authors to me that I've never read from before. I already have my first book picked out because I do need to read it in the month of October. So my first book is going to be The Second Greatest Inevitability. This is by Michael Gryboski. This author kindly sent me a copy of his book and asked me to read it and review it. And so I'm really curious to try it out. I'm a little nervous because that's a lot of pressure. Having an author specifically ask you to review a book of theirs and sending it to you. So it's definitely a lot of pressure. But this is the first book that I'm going to be trying out. I've never heard of this author before. I've never tried any of his books before, but I am curious about it. So it says, meet David Shapsdale, an entertainer with high class, a maven of fine wines, a lover of English literature, a charming intellectual, and a man with a shadowy past in a faraway country. On a cold winter's night in his adopted homeland, as David hosts a lavish party for many powerful friends, a mysterious yet familiar guest arrives. David happily welcomes the young man, believing that he comes as an old friend who, to his pleasant surprise, has survived what the popular society figure calls the greatest inevitability. In reality, the plans of the unexpected figure prove to be something greater and more terrifying than anything that David could have anticipated. The second greatest inevitability takes the reader through a twisted road of past and present, of objective reality and distorted propaganda. As the world dwells in darkness and violence, something hopeful comes as a thief in the night. So it sounds really interesting. Sounds like it's going to be a thriller, and I'm really curious to try it. So this is the first book that I will for sure be reading for this video. Now, what I was thinking for my other ones, because I want to try and do 3. The question is do I want to just pick some thriller authors that I haven't read yet, or do I want to try and choose from my jar? I think I'm going to choose one from my jar, and then I'm going to just kind of pick another one as I see fit, depending on how long it takes me. So let's grab the jar. All right, so we're just gonna randomly choose one out of here. I have quite a few authors that I have not read from, but in the chance that I do get one that I have read from before, we'll just pick again. Or if I'm really not feeling that book, I wanna kind of do this as like a mood reading because it is October. So I wanna have something that's like fantasy or thriller or horror, something like that, that it just kind of fits the vibes. So let's just pick one out of the jar. Okay, so it is a purple one. Focus. What does that say? Voices in the Snow by Darcy Coates. Okay, so technically I haven't read from Darcy Coates, but I do have The Haunting of Ashburn House that's on my TBR. Should I read that one? I think that sounds like a great idea. I'm going to read The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates instead of Voices in the Snow. I just got Voices in the Snow and I'm excited to read it, but we're going to do Haunting of Ashburn House, so let me grab that book. Okay, so here we have The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates. I've wanted to try one of her books for a really long time, and now I finally am going to. So this one, it says, everyone knows about Ashburn House. They whisper that its old owner went mad and restless ghosts still walk the halls. But when Adrienne, desperate and in need of a place to stay, inherits the crumbling old mansion, she only sees it as a lifeline until darkness falls. Strange messages are etched into the walls, furniture moves when she leaves the room, and a grave hidden in the depths of the forest hints at a terrible, unforgivable secret. Something twisted lives in her house, its hungry eyes ever watchful. Chasing the threads of a decades-old mystery, it isn't long before she realizes she's become prey to something deeply unnatural and intensely resentful. She has no idea how to escape. She has no idea how to survive. Only one thing is certain. Ashburn's dead are not at rest. So it sounds really, really good. I love a haunted house story. So for this video, I'm going to be picking up at least these 2 books. If I have time to read a third one before I need to get this video out, I will. But I'm really excited to read these 2. So we'll see how it goes. I am going to start with this one because I really need to get this one read, but then we're going to jump into this one. So I'm going to start this and we'll see how far I get today and if I enjoy it. I'll come back and give you guys an update when I get a little ways into it and have some first initial thoughts. Hey, what's up guys? So it is a while later. It is around 12:30 right now and I am a little over halfway through The Second Greatest Inevitability, or right around halfway. And I don't think I'm a fan. This book is, I feel like I'm too dumb for this book. Like, it's very pretentious in how it's written. And I don't feel like I'm fully following what's happening. So if you've ever seen The Killing Season with Robert De Niro and John Travolta, it's not a super commonly seen movie, I don't think, but it's kind of making me think of that. So John Travolta is a foreign man that was involved in a war, and Robert De Niro was on the other side of that war. And John Travolta comes and finds him living in a cabin, finds Robert De Niro living in a cabin, and is going to try and get revenge on him for basically having him set up as like execution style killing and letting him go. So basically he's coming to get his revenge. And that's basically what this is. So this is kind of like The Killing Season, except our main character, David Chapsale, is now living in the States and is well off. Or not in the States, in the UK. And he's well off and doing well with his life. And he was a part of this rebellion way back in the day. And this guy comes in who is younger and has said that, you know, he's going to tell the truth. He's going to tell him what really happened all those years ago, and he's going to kill him. And it's going to be revenge, basically. So that's what this is. So the first part one of this book is about him having this like lavish party. The thing is with this lavish party that he was having, they're talking like they're straight out of the 20s, not modern day. So it's supposed to be modern day because they're supposed to be able to have smartphones and whatnot, but it is reading their dialogue in this is like the 20s. So like at one point this is page 23, so there's no spoilers, just right at the beginning of the book. And the line is literally, for this dialogue, it says, "Dare I say, Mr. Al-Nasri, that perchance you should consider halting your consumption, lest you run out?" And then it says, now, Mrs. Bradford, commendated, "A fine wine is like a fine life. Though it eventually is finished, the enjoyment it spreads to others will never be forgot." So it's very like old school, old dialogue type of thing. And the whole point of this is that David does not have a phone. He doesn't have a TV, anything like that, which is fine. That's a personal choice. But I don't understand why everybody at this party is speaking this way. And then on the next page, on the very next page, I cringe so much. Sorry, let me back up a little bit. So on the very next page, if you continue on for just another couple of lines, it had said, now, Mrs. Bradford, commented David, "A fine wine is like a fine life. Though it eventually is finished, the enjoyment it spreads to others will never be forgot." And then it goes on to say, quite the philosophical declaration. What writer came up with such a clever preponderance? Well, David said with a faint blush, I did actually. The three laughed at the impromptu genius of their host as the door opened with more guests arriving. Like, I cringed so bad. I had to put a note in here. Like, it was so bad. And then there's other ways that he is talking about things that's just kind of odd. Instead of saying that they directed their eyes to a certain area, he says, even if they directed their ocular organs to behold that area, they would not see much. It's like, are we writing an essay in school about like how to use other words so you're not repeating things over and over? Like, I feel like that's kind of what it was at the beginning of this. It was very strange. Now I'm in part 2 and I'm up to 133 pages in, and we've gone back in time to where David is becoming a part of this rebellion. And first getting involved with it. And so we're learning a little bit more of his backstory and kind of what happened in that time. And I'm not sure what time it is. It's back far enough that it's a time of dial-up internet and VHS tapes and cassette tapes and floppy disks. He mentions floppy disks in here, which cracked me up. So it's back into like the 80s, 90s-ish time when this is taking place. But it's written very, very odd. And I'm not a big fan. Like, this plot line is moving so glacially. It's so slow that I am bored. I am bored with this book. I don't understand what the point is. I don't understand why I should care about these people. And there's enough people in it. There's enough names being thrown in that I mean, like, why should I care? Why should I care? So I'm not a huge fan of this so far. I am going to continue on in it though. Hopefully it gets better. But right now I'm feeling like it's at most going to be like 3 stars. I think that for the right kind of audience, that person might enjoy this book. I'm just not it. So I'm feeling at this point like it's going to end up being right around 3 stars for me. It's not terrible. Like I said, it isn't bad. It's just not really for me. And I feel like I said, the right audience, the right person to read this book who's actually interested in this kind of a thing might enjoy it more. But this is very political, and being the whole rebellion thing and whatnot. And I feel like I'm having a hard time following it because it is just... So I feel like I'm just having a hard time getting invested in it, and right now I just don't really care. So like, I am halfway through it. It's reading very quickly, and it isn't terrible. It's just not for me. So that is my update for the time being. I'm gonna go eat some pizza and watch some YouTube, and then I will get back to reading. But hopefully I will be able to get done with this quickly and give you my final thoughts on it before I start Darcy Coates. Hey, good morning guys. So I didn't come on here and update you last night, but I did finish The Second Greatest Inevitability by Michael Gryboski. This book was very different. It is the kind of book that will unsettle you and piss you off and bother you in different ways. This book made me really mad last night when I was reading it, but I still finished it. And I honestly, the reason it made me mad was because he accomplished what he set out to do. This book is a look into terrorism. And I'm going to go into spoiler mode real quick, so be warned, I will put a little logo up somewhere on the screen for while I'm talking about spoilers. But here we go. This book talks about terrorism, and it's from the point of view of a terrorist, from a big terrorist, and him recruiting people to be terrorists. It is about suicide bombers. It is about going in and crashing vehicles into buildings and killing everybody in that building because it comes tumbling down. And that includes children in daycare, that includes men, women, children, everybody. It talks about killing men, women, and children. It talks about having kids cleaning up the blood of their families when it's not actually their families, it's actually animal blood, because they're trying to piss people off. They're trying to make things happen. And there's one quote in here that really, really set me off. And this is what really gets into spoiler territory if you're watching this, so beware. This is on page 214. And I will say, I'll get to that in a second, but on page 214, it says, the imam then spoke about the vests each boy was wearing. They were khaki colored and dangerous. The way you shall enter heaven is through the vests you now wear. These are to children. okay? These are to kids that are wearing these vests. It says, the way you shall enter heaven is through the vest you now wear. All of you must go to the nearest infidel and be sure to blow yourself up, sending them to Iblis and yourself to paradise. For you older children, you will be responsible for pushing your own button. It is located at the center of the vest. For you younger warriors, we will handle the trigger. We have a couple of fine devout Muslim men who will witness how close you get, and when the time comes, will remotely activate your vest, thereby sending you to Allah. Now, any questions? And then it says, is there chocolate in heaven? Asked a bright-eyed 5-year-old in the front row. These are little kids. They are not just teenagers. They are not 18-year-olds that they are sending in as suicide bombers. They are 5-year-olds. Okay, this book is meant to piss you off, and it did that. It made me so incredibly mad, and I think it made me so incredibly mad. And I was so livid when I was reading this last night, and I almost didn't write a review for it last night at all because I was just mad. I was mad with reading this book. But when I actually got to thinking about it after the fact and looked at it a little bit more critically and a little bit less emotionally, this author, he wrote a difficult topic. If you write a book from the perspective of Hitler, you will have the same kind of prejudices. You will have the same kind of outlooks. And this is the same thing. It just, I think, hits closer to home because of it being more recent with 9/11 and everything with that. So at the beginning of this book, he does say that he was a freshman, North grade campus of T.C. Williams High School of Alexandria, Virginia, and when 9/11 happened. And so what he goes on to say in the author's note at the very beginning of the book, and at this point, I didn't read the author's note until I was at this point where I was getting mad. And then I went back and I read the author's note, which I'm really glad I did because that kind of made me chill out a bit. But it says, in contrast to many entertainment programs out there which seek to glamorize or otherwise positively portray terrorism, this story rightfully depicts it as vile, destructive, and even self-destructive, as seen with one character in particular who repents. I believe this graphic content to be, in its own way, educational and not gratuitous. Sometimes one must see the horrible to truly understand the nature of evil. And I think that line really sums this up. He did this intentionally. He did this intentionally to upset you and to make you upset and to be off-putting. He did that intentionally. And even in the about the author at the end of the book, it actually says, Michael would rather be correct than widely accepted. So he knows this is going to be a hot take. He knows that people are going to be upset by this book. He knows that. And I think that's very brave of him as an author to go into a book like this when so many of us who are going to be reading it were a witness in one way or another to 9/11. I was really little. I was really, apart from it, because I think I was in like kindergarten when it happened, but it was still such a big deal. And you talk about it every single year in school. I think my kids still talk about it every single year in school. They talk about what happened on 9/11. You hear the stories, you read the books, you see the news reports. All of that is such a close hitter for like so many of us. It's so close to home that it's meant to upset you, and it's meant to make you look at things and get your thoughts going. So this is it. This is a very interesting take on a perspective. You get a character study of a terrorist, and it's something, and it is obviously a Muslim thing. It's definitely not for everyone. I don't think it was fully for me. I can see the way that he did this well, and I can appreciate that. This book was not for me. I was not happy, to say the least. I was not happy with this book, but I can say that he explored it interestingly. He explored it well. As much as it made me mad, I think that it was an interesting character study. The first half of this book, I did not like. I did not start enjoying this book until I was about 56% of the way through it. Then I started to get invested. I hated the dialogue at the beginning. I absolutely hated it. There was no reason for the people in any time to be talking okay, put it this way. In a time of smartphones, there was no reason for the dialogue to be as old-timey and classic as it was. There was no reason for that. It just wasn't necessary. I think he went too far in the way that they were speaking at the beginning of this book. I think it took too long to set up. I think it took too long for me to get invested. However, I can appreciate what he was trying to do with this book. And for that, I am giving this 3.5 stars. I don't know if I would recommend it to everybody. I think you would have to go in with a really, really, really open mind, because this book will be triggering for I don't want to say everyone, but this book will be triggering for a lot of people. It will upset a lot of people. That's kind of the point. But he does it well. It's definitely an interesting read. However, I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. I'm kind of glad that I read it, because it did upset me and it did get me thinking, and it did piss me off so bad last night when I was reading it. I almost stopped reading it so many times, and especially with that quote that I read, it made me so upset. But like I said, once I kind of sat back and thought critically about it, I can see the way that he did things well. Did I like this book? Not really. Like I said, it wasn't for me. But I can appreciate what he was trying to do. So that being said, now that I've ranted about this book for almost 10 minutes, I'm going to move on. I actually need to go up and grab my next book, because I am in the car about to leave the driveway, and I forgot to grab myself a book for today. And so I need to go and get that, and then I need to go to town. My son has an eye appointment today. And so yeah, that is it. I finished the book. I'm glad that I read it, because it definitely is something different than what I normally read. But I'm glad that it's over. So that being said, the next book I am going to pick up is The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates. I'm really, really excited to read that one. And so yeah, once I actually have some updates for you, I will be back. But for right now, 3.5 stars for The Second Greatest Inevitability. And God, I'm glad it's over. I'm sorry, but I'm glad it's over. So I will talk to you guys once I have some updates on my next book. Hey, what's up guys? So it is now Wednesday, and I haven't talked to you since Monday. So I finished The Second Greatest Inevitability. So I guess I talked to you guys about that one yesterday morning before going to town. But I have since started The Haunting of Ashburn House. It's now just after 5 o'clock. It is 5:05 today. And I have been reading this one kind of off and on today. And I am up to about halfway through it. So far I'm enjoying it. I'm definitely intrigued. I love the atmosphere that she's building with this house and the mysteries. It's not anything that's very horror-ish right now. And it's not very scary. It's not very haunted, but there are odd things that are happening, and I'm definitely intrigued. So this book is following Adrian, or Addie, who has just moved into Ashburn House, and this house was owned by her great whatever aunt, and after she passed away, she left it to Adrian. Now, Adrian didn't even know this woman existed. She thought that all of her family was gone. She didn't have any living family left. And then she's left this house. Her mother has passed away, and now Adrian is in like a mega debt because of her mother's medical bills. So by the time that her mother passed away, she had second mortgage on the house and insane medical bills that they needed to get paid and all that kind of thing. So she was basically homeless, had no money left. She had, after getting a taxi to Ashburn House, so after paying for the taxi, she has like $20 left in her pocket until she has some money come in from the work that she's done freelance writing. So she's just trying to figure out how to make ends meet. It's her and her cat, Wolfsbane, and he is some kind of a Maine Coon mix is what they said. He was a stray that she took in, and that's who she has left. So she's heard these really strange things at night where right when the sun goes down, everything goes silent, like something is happening. And then a couple minutes later, things kind of like, it's like releasing a breath almost, where all the birds take off, all the bugs start making noise again. But she doesn't understand why this is happening right when it gets dark. So that's definitely intriguing. And so she's trying to learn different things about the past for her great aunt Edith, and trying to learn little tidbits about her. Supposedly her Edith's mom, dad, aunt, and uncle all died in the house and then were murdered, supposedly. But nobody knows what actually happened, and it was like a really, really long time ago. So nobody really knows what's happening with that. And Edith Ashburn was kind of a recluse. Like she went into town every day to get a newspaper and then whatever like random oddball groceries that she needed. But she didn't really talk to anybody, and she didn't want anybody coming up to the house. She didn't want anybody at her house or around her house, or, you know, she was a very, very private person, very secluded in her old age. So I'm definitely intrigued. I'm really curious to see where this is going to go. I'm hoping that the haunted aspect of this kind of kicks in a little bit more. There's strange messages that are carved into the walls and the tabletop in the house, which I'm also very curious about. The one that's carved in the table, it says, "Is it Friday? Light the candle," because every Friday Edith Ashburn would light a candle in the attic for some unknown reason. And everybody knew about it. Everybody could see it, but nobody knew why she did it. So that's carved into the table. And then there's no mirrors in this entire house. So we don't know why that is, why mirrors are so taboo in this house. So there's definitely a lot of questions. I'm really, really hoping that things are going to start to really kick off at this point, since I am about halfway through. But I'm really liking this. I like her writing style a lot. I think it's really, really quick to read. I've been sitting here reading this all day, and I'm like already 156 pages into this. So, and that's not really what's I'm not trying to make a ton of pages today. So definitely making great progress with this. Really curious to see where it's going to go. And yeah, I'm really enjoying my time with it so far. So that is all I've got to say for right now, at least. This is probably going to be the last book that I read for this video. I'll probably just keep it with the two, keep it simple, and that way I can get this posted on Friday. My kids have a long weekend coming up, so it's going to be kind of crazy this weekend, but I want to get started on my next project so that way I can get it going before the weekend. But yeah, so once I get done with this, I will come back and I will give you my final updates. But for right now, I am really enjoying it. So hopefully that continues. All right, so I will talk to you guys once I have my final thoughts. Hey, what's up guys? So it is now the next afternoon, evening, whatever it is. Oh, a little after 4, and I just finished The Haunting of Ashburn House. And for those of you who have read this and you watched my last clip and you thought, just you wait, you are absolutely correct. This book, after I last updated you, it kicked off. It got creepy. It was already atmospheric. And the whole setup at the beginning of this book just made you care about the character, root for our main character. You were rooting for Adrian, Addie. You were rooting for her and Wolf to figure everything out. And she kept saying throughout this book, I don't want to be that dumb girl from all the scary movies that makes the really stupid decisions and all that. And she tried really, really hard not to. There were some times that she couldn't get away from it, but she really tried not to. But this book, after I talked to you guys yesterday, it went crazy. It went creepy, and it was fantastic. I loved this. So I just finished this, and like I wish I could have filmed some of my expressions from this, because I was shocked and I was freaked out, and it was great. It was the perfect haunted house book, and I loved it. I even loved how she wrapped it up. I really enjoyed that, and I thought it was really interesting. So I don't think I really need to say that I gave this book 5 stars, and I absolutely loved it, and I will be gladly picking up more from Darcy Coates in the future. I already have Voices in the Snow. I mean, obviously you know that, because that's what I originally pulled out of the jar when I decided to read this one instead, since I hadn't read from Darcy Coates yet. and it was phenomenal. I loved it. So very, very glad to have read this one. So we only finished 2 books in this video, but that's okay. You know, I'm all right with that. So we had The Second Greatest Inevitability, which I gave 3 stars, 3.5 stars, depending on how you look at it. I thought the second half of the book could have gotten a 4-star. I didn't like the content, but I thought that it was interesting still, and I could see like his reasoning behind it. So the second half could have gotten 4 stars. The first half would have been like, you know, 2 stars. So overall I ended up giving this like 3 stars. Not my kind of book, but you know, we talked about that. So anyways, I read this one, and then I read this one, and this one was hands down 5 stars. This was so good. I can't wait to pass this along to my dad. I think it's gonna freak him out, and it'll just be a grand old time. I think it'll be a whole lot of fun. So just finished 2 books for this video, but I'm really, really, really glad that I got to these, and I'm finally read Darcy Coates for the first time. What is your favorite Darcy Coates book? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, and get more recommendations for which ones I should prioritize from her, because I will definitely be getting more books by her. So if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe down below. Thank you so much for being here, hanging out with me for a little bit, and I will see you next week with another video. Bye.